My word, do I have a treat for you guys today. I am here at Cactus Anonymous. This place is one of Australia's preeminent production nurseries for very rare and very unique cacti and succulents. And I've got the run of the place. There are amazing plants everywhere, many of which are in flower, many of which you'll never see anything the likes of except in very specialist collections. And there is just sheer volume. This place is off the charts, and I'm so excited to take you guys for a massive tour. This is part 3 of Arid Zine Visits Brisbane, and it couldn't be bigger and it couldn't be better. So let's go check this place out, shall we? And why not start in the collection greenhouse? These are the private plants of owners Robin and Katrina. And as far as the eye can see, there are just massive, mature, incredible specimens. So how do you start? Where do you start? Well, let's start in a corner here with this amazing plant. This is White Sloania crassa. It's a member of the Asclepiadaceae family. It's related to Euphorbias, Stapelias, Pseudolithos and the like, but this one could well be one of the rarest of them all. It's suggested that this plant actually has gone extinct in its native Somalia. And the exciting thing about this one, as has been pointed out to me, is that this little knobble here, that's actually a developing seed pod. There are seeds on the way. So this amazing plant, which is noted for how difficult it is to grow on its own roots, is going to be reproducing soon. But anyway, enough about that. Let's just look at this sea of Ariocarpus, because, you know, not every day that you see something like this. Everything from your Ariocarpus retusus, Ariocarpus strigonus, they're all here. They're all massive. Look at that, fissuratus, double-headed thing. Absolutely amazing. They clearly love life in this greenhouse. The noise behind me is a fan that's running, I guess just to keep air movement going. Look at these. Echinocerius, rubrispinus, all on the verge of flowering. I've seen a few impressive Astrophytum while I've been up here in Brisbane, but these things are next level. Astrophytum myriostigmas, these are your Fukuriu cultivars, noted for these knobbly bits between the ribs. Again, either in flower or on the verge of flowering. And just to illustrate the insanity of this place, here's an immaculate Copiapoa just lurking in behind them all. Mammillaria plumosas, huge variegated Astrophytum myriostigma back there. And then look at all these ones as well. It just keeps going. Every time I move my eyes somewhere, I'm just confronted by more and more incredible and insanely well cared for collection plants. I mean, have a look at this. We've got stenocactus, mammillarias, Ariocyce, things as far as the eye can see. And then, look at this, an absolute beauty. Another mammillaria in full bloom with that little crown of flowers all around the top. Really quite stunning. Lately I've had a bit of a thing for Thelocactus, and this one here is an absolute monster. Just goes to show how fantastic these plants can look when you get them to size and maturity. Honestly, I just can't stress enough how many amazing plants almost just get lost in here. Like, have a look at these. A pair of Copiapoa columna albas, immaculately grown with that beautiful powdery white farina. They must be quite old, and they're just lurking in amongst this sea of everything. Could easily overlook them. More Copiapoas. These are little Copiapoa hypergaias. You can see the remnants of old flowers at their crown. And have a look at these. Astrophytum asterius in flower and so tall that it's essentially taken on a columnar shape. Off the charts. Oh, and look, of course, just another pair of immaculate Copiapoas. Now, I'm a true lover of medusoid euphorbias, southern African little weirdos, and these are amongst the cutest and most interesting I've seen. These are Euphorbia pugniformis. Now you can see they're in flower. We've actually got a nice mating pair here. This one here is male, signified by the pollen that you can see on the flowers here. And right here, we've got a female. These flowers are devoid of pollen. So many, many baby Euphorbia pugniformis to come. Very exciting. I was actually talking to Robin, who cares for and owns this nursery in conjunction with his wife. And he said that a lot of the euphorbias just pollinate via the insects. Now, the thing that's incredible about all this, can you believe this? This whole place, and I've barely shown you any of it so far, this whole place is a two-man operation. They don't hire staff. And you can see here this greenhouse, as massive it is barely the beginning. There's so much more to see. Let's continue and see what else we can find around the traps. I know that there are many Lithops enthusiasts who watch Arid Zine, and let me tell you what, you cannot believe what you're seeing in front of you right now. It's like an ocean of some of the most amazing Lithops cultivars that you can possibly imagine. Just enormous clumps, immaculately grown. And of course, the thing about Lithops is that they're super finicky. They're really hard to grow and grow well. And yet, look at this. Look at this. Now, these are all in the stage of their life cycle, I suppose, or their annual cycle, where they're starting to shed their old leaves. The new leaves are emerging from within. And replacing, taking the water out of them, ready to begin afresh. All sorts of different species plants, cultivars. Look at these up the back here. Lithops optica rubras. Quite unique. They run to a slightly different schedule to the rest of your Lithops. Makes them a little bit more difficult to grow. And then here we have some of my favourites. These are not Lithops, but they're related. Lapidaria margaretes. And these ones are fantastic in their geometry. Have a look at the shape of those leaves. Really incredibly stunning. I'm a massive sucker for euphorbias, Euphorbia obesa especially. And have a look at these absolutely immaculate specimens. Fantastically old, they're growing up into nice big fat columnars. But the joyful thing I think about them is the patterning on them. As they grow and age, the corking around the base begins to grow up with the plant in a way, and it adds a whole lot of character. You can see these plants are all in flower, very heavy flower, and amidst them all a paintbrush dusted with pollen. And so it's seed growing season for the Euphorbia obesas. A very happy time for them, I'm sure. Fantastic. Speaking of which, here's one here, loaded with seed pods. They'll be ready to pop. You'll know they'll be ready to pop when they start to turn brown, and it's a matter of figuring out how to collect them before they explode all over the place. Oh. And these ones here, Euphorbia symmetricas. Harder to distinguish from your obesas, but very closely related, as you can see. Absolutely stunning. Also laden with seed. Have a look at these. These are very, very large and stunning examples of your Gymnocalycium spegazinii I can't say the word. Gymnocalycium spegazini unguispinum. Noted for the claw-shaped spines. a real favourite amongst collectors. And then there's just another sea of Astrophytums, as if what we looked at before wasn't enough. Astrophytum mysterious of all sorts of different cultivars. This one's an interesting one. This is a Kiko form of Astrophytum mysterious, amongst the more common but still very desirable Astrophytum mysterious supercabutos. Your Kiko form is noted for those almost pointed tubercles. And over here, Astrophytum mysterious muscle forms. It's a monstrose Kiko form that grows even more bumpy and even more warty. What a surprise! What a genuine joy to find amongst these plants. Now, if you're a Caudex lover, this place has got stuff for you too. Don't worry, I haven't neglected you. And we can start our little Caudex journey by looking at these amazing Avonia quinarias. These are the subspecies Alstonii here and the subspecies quinaria here. The only real major difference is in the colour of the flowers. One of them is pink and one of them is white. And you can see, if I can get down low enough, those interesting, almost tentacle-like leaves emerge from a fattened, very sort of thick, woody, cordiciform base. Beautiful plants, quite slow growing, so to get something of this size would take many, many years indeed. Amazing. Eublemanias, they're fantastic. You give them just the right light and they'll turn purple. How cool is that? We've got all manner of amazing Haworthias. They certainly don't just stick to one type of plant, that's for sure. Have a look at these little variegated Haworthia malgarnii. The colouring on them, they almost look like little lollies or something. Absolutely remarkable. And then all these other ones as well, both variegated, non-variegated. It's a stunning collection. And it's interesting, you can see this end of the greenhouse, this is the shadier end, which of course is much better suited to your Haworthias. They prefer a bit of protection compared to up here, the light that enables the cacti to soak in everything and revel in the sunlight. Fantastic. All right, I'm going to get out of this greenhouse. I could stay in here all day, but there's many, many others to look at too, so let's go check them out as well. Now, if you're enjoying Arid Zine, there are of course ways that you can support the show. Please hit like, hit subscribe, and there's a link on the screen where you can find cool merch like the Arid Zine Caudex Club t-shirt and plenty of others. And there's a Patreon. I release bonus videos. I'll tell you what, the Patreon subscribers, they got a very, very early preview of this amazing place. So check that out. It's all on the link on the screen, but let's get back into our fantastic exploration of Cactus Anonymous. I'm not going to go in here. I'm just going to stand at the entrance of this hoop house and revel in the stunning plants you can see here. Massive. You can see all sorts of incredible Copiapoas, Astrophytums, Ferrocactus. Have a look at those weirdos. I don't even know what that is. I might have to find out. Something growing very atypically. Very bizarre. How wonderful is that? Did I mention this is just a two-man job? I don't know how that's possible. All right, I'm in another greenhouse now, and why not start off by looking at a couple of absolutely monstrous flowering Astrophytums here. These things are enormous, beyond incredible. And behind them, the sea of plants just never ends. I've only got about an hour to spend here. How on earth am I supposed to cover off on everything? Have a look at this. Try to get in as close as I can. Some little hoodias there, but you can see one of them fantastically is in flower. Wish I could get closer to give it a real good sniff. They're supposed to stink repulsive. Oh well, I suppose I can do without the stench of rotting flesh today. Here are some more caudiciform plants, little Gerodanthus, members of your Cucurbitaceae family. Evidently growing with a nice, massive, fat Caudex. Stunning to see. And the thing about this place that is so delightful is just the complete lack of any real order. Because behind the Gerodanthuses, we've got these smaller, but still remarkably stunning Copiapoas. Just hanging out like nobody's business. And then some clumps of Euphorbia abdelkuri. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Now it's not all insanely rare plants and insanely old plants. Like I said, this place is a production nursery, and I'll show you where a lot of these plants are produced later on. But there genuinely is a fascinating mix of all sorts of different things, because you can see here variegated aeoniums, clearly recently propagated. So it's not just about your Caudex plants and massive flowering cacti. They cater to everyone. Little aloe hybrids. Look at the stunning colours on these, and the teeth on the leaf margins. Amazing. Some little Dorstenias. Now your Dorstenias, they love to throw seed all over the place. I can only imagine what it would be like when they start popping up everywhere. They're bad enough in my own greenhouse, let alone someplace like this. Now these things here, these stick-looking things, are really interesting. These are in the Cucurbitaceae family as well. They are a caudiciform plant. They're called Serrigia humbertii. And above the soil, they just look like this weird, almost furry bundle of sticks. But under the soil, that's where the magic happens. That's where you start developing a thick tuberous root, which can be raised over time as a bit of a statement for those of you who enjoy your big, fat Caudex plants. Pachypodiums, remarkable. More mammillarias in flower. Have I mentioned that visually I'm just completely overwhelmed? I don't even know how or where to express the insanity of this place. Have a look at these. Massive Parodia magnifica. And then some even more massive barrels here, some sort of, I'm assuming, ferrocactus. Remarkable. Have a look at these. These little pebbly looking green things are Tylocodon schäferianus, I think they're called. Aren't they just the cutest little things? Little winter growing plants. Come from South Africa in the winter rainfall region. They're just a little delight. And then right next to them, some pelargoniums. Could be Pelargonium crythumfolium. And delightfully it's in flower. And you can see one of them, I believe, is about to set seed. More Copiapoas all over the place. Get a load of these remarkable Euphorbias here. You've got Polygonas, and then, not exactly sure what this is, but loaded with seed pods. You can see the insects doing their magic work. This looks like a Euphorbia ferox, again loaded with seed pods. I wonder to what extent these things are hybridized. Look at the bold colours of your Euphorbia abdelkuri damask under the shade of this, this greenhouse. Now I've talked in a previous episode about how Euphorbia abdelkuri, the variegated form, is this pinky expression, and you can see it quite clearly here, where the usual grey concretic kind of form has reverted from the normal variegation. The variegated form damask is usually fully variegated in a way. It usually doesn't have these reversions, and therefore it's usually grafted. But then you can see in this one, that reversion. Be interesting to see if this plant could grow on its own roots. Look at these little baby toes. Named for obvious reasons. I've seen them quite a bit smaller than this. Never anything as insanely massive as this. What's this? This looks like an Asclepiad of some description. The patterning on it. I wonder what this is. It's about to flower as well. And have a look at this crest. I'm assuming this is some sort of crested Copiapoa. It's absolutely massive though. It's in a sea of massive plants. Once again, easy to miss. But when you just pause and take a moment, like, didn't even notice this, Ariocarpus fissuratus. Again, incredibly enormous. And just in amongst everything. Remarkable. One of my greater loves amongst some of the weirder and more wonderful plants out there is one of the strangest amongst all of them. It's the genus Larryleachia, and you can see a little collection of them here. They look like almost weird melting alien brains. Have a look at this, have a look at this. And here you can see how beautiful and delicate their flowers are. Very, very tiny, but if I were to stick my nose down in there, oh boy, not an enjoyable experience. Smells like carrion, but very effective means of attracting their pollinators, their fly pollinators, who just love the smell. How delightful. And then next to them, you can see here some very well grown pseudolithos. Closely related, different type of Asclepiad, also very difficult to grow on their own roots. If you're into Adenias, Adenia glauca in particular, here's just a fancy little row of specimen plants that are absolutely insane. Get a load of this, have a look at it in terms of the size of my hand. That is massive. Adenias are fantastic. They're also extremely toxic. Adenia glauca maybe not nearly as much as some, but some of the Adenias are known as amongst the most toxic plants on the planet. You need to be very, very careful when growing them, especially if you're pruning them. And one of the things that typically is done in Adenia care, as you can see with these ones, giving them a snip at the end of the growing season helps cut back the dead vines and puts a bit more energy into growing the fat Caudex at the base. Remarkable plants. There are some more Adenias just over here. So you can see here, this one here, this not quite as fat at the base, but these are called Adenia venenatas, and they sort of start as these thick, almost pachycol looking trees, and then as you can see, very rapidly turn into these high climbing vines. Now these ones are incredibly toxic. You want to be very, very careful when handling or growing Adenia venenata. I've got a couple of them in my own greenhouse, and I'm perhaps never quite careful enough, but certainly you want to be using gloves and other protective methods if you're cutting into them, because the sap is not something to be messed with. And I cannot stress enough, guys, check these guys out on Facebook. They sell hundreds and hundreds of plants every month, some of them common, but many of them fantastic rarities plucked from this very production room. It's well worth your time and your money, I reckon, because the plants here are just absolutely stunning. I've lost track of how many greenhouses I've been in so far. It's all blurring into each other. I feel like I'm lost in a desert of endless, amazing, well-grown, beautifully rare, remarkably attractive plants. And it just continues here. What I do want to show you is up the back of this greenhouse, if nothing captures my attention before I get there, the flower production area, where Cactus Anonymous develops their seeds. And you're probably starting to notice the splashes of colour starting to emerge out here. You'll notice paintbrushes galore to assist with pollination, and then mating groups of plants, all aligned, very neatly arranged. We can zero in here on some Ortego cactus that are in flower, and of course you get two of these with your paintbrush, go to town, and very soon you've got seed pods ready to go with a whole collection of the next generation of Ortego cactus. But that's, I mean, obviously these plants are all over the place. We've got Mammillaria Humboldtii here that are absolutely popping with colour. The contrast of the pink flowers against those densely packed white spines, quite remarkable. Have a look at these. Real favourite amongst all sorts of cacti and succulent growers. Tephrocarpus geometricus, really unique for the ball shape of the pads. They're related to Opuntias, of course, which have flat paddle-shaped leaves or growths. And these ones, rather than being flat, their growth expresses itself in that sort of ball shape. And there are different forms. You can see here, here's one that's more spiny, but I think the real favourites are those that are less spined and enable the geometric shape of those balls to really shine through. Now, I don't know too much about Turbinicarpus. I know that they're small growing, slow growing Mexican plants, but what I do know is I've never seen a crested Turbinicarpus before in my life, certainly not one this big either. And you know, it's just here amongst everything. I'm lost for words that a plant like this, which would be a showstopper in most collections, is just hanging out here. Now these are really cool, Geohintonia mexicanas, little cacti from Mexico, obviously, hence the name. Very, very slow growing. These would take probably decades to get to this size. An amazing little breeding colony of them. And then over here, an Aztecium. Now Azteciums, for those in the know, would recognise Azteciums as being the slowest growing of all cacti. They're very, very slow. This one I believe is Aztecium hintonii, which doesn't grow quite as slow as its cousin Aztecium riteri, but still, seeing a plant of this size, it would take an unfathomable amount of time to reach flowering age. Euphorbia gymnocalycioides, crested forms. Dorstenias. These ones, Dorstenia. Actually, I saw over here somewhere. Where were they? Lost them. Some magnificent Dorstenias. Have a look at these, little Ariocarpus cotubianus of various different subspecies. They're one of the smallest of all your Ariocarpus. Grow with really fat, thick, tuberous underground roots. Their natural habitat, surprisingly, is in the bottom of like silt pan lagoons in Mexico. Remarkable, right? Tried to replicate that habitat at home. More Ariocarpus. Ariocarpus cauliflowers. So named, of course, for the sort of warty leaves. It's a cultivar that was first developed, I believe, in Japan, where your master growers over there can do some genuinely remarkable things. And these here look like your Ariocarpus fissuratus Godzilla. What a fantastic name that is, Godzilla. These here, I believe, go by the name Puna Bonnier, or Puna Bonnier, something like that. They're kind of like your Tephrocarpus geometricus, but the balls are significantly smaller. They're like little miniature versions. Let's see if I can illustrate with a fingernail. Very, very cute, as you can see. Undoubtedly, up there is another one of the favourite amongst geometric loving cactus lovers. Does that even make sense? I don't know. Now here are some of my favourites. Euphorbia buplerifolia. They grow fantastically well in my part of the world. I can't get enough of them, and here, of course, unsurprisingly, they're doing sensationally well. The presence of a toothbrush tells me that they're seed producing as well. Magnificent. The things I've seen today, honestly, they blow my mind. Have a look at this. Euphorbia raminas. All flowering. All very, very happy. Off the charts, right? Off the charts. Got stuff here, I don't even know what it is. What's that emerging out of the ground over there? Fascinating. Beyond fascinating. You know, everywhere you look, there's just stuff that in my collection, in your collection, you'd be like, that's the best plant that I own. I mean, have a look at these Astrophytum mysterious. They're not even on a shelf. They don't even have the dignity of a shelf. Now, something like this would be pride of place in my collection. And here, they get jammed between a couple of shelves because there's just not enough space. I've just noticed the Euphorbia unispina collection. These are massive. And they are beyond impressive. Very, very rare plants to see one of them of this size. Here there's 4. Amazing. And the thing that's most insane about all of this, and I will show you some more of the collection shortly, the thing that's most insane about all of this is that it's a 2-person job. They don't have any hired assistants. 2 people caring for all of these plants. Not, well, when I say all of these plants, I make it sound like, you know, it's just these ones. Look at these. Euphorbia francoisii. Amazing. Now we're in the production nursery greenhouse. This is where seedlings and some cuttings are planted en masse, dug up and sold. Now Cactus Anonymous does most of its business through a Facebook sales group. Every Saturday, I believe, they just sell in the space of about 100 plants or so. People vying against each other to get in first, because I do know that their plants are wildly popular, and deservedly so, as you can see. And so I was having a bit of a chat with Robin, who of course is half the business here. And essentially what happens is that they'll plant out some seedlings in a tray, dig a few up here and there, sell them, and then as a tray starts to empty, like something like this, sometimes a few other species might go into it. You can see this has got a mix of Anacampseros, Euphorbias, some Gymnocalyciums, and Astrophytum here and there, compared to something like this, which is largely all just Gymnocalyciums, or here your Monodeniums. But as the trays get emptied, I'll just swap them out with the next incoming tray of seedlings. So there's just all sorts of amazing stuff. I have just spotted, I'm sorry to interrupt what I'm saying, but I have just spotted something truly remarkable. Here we have got Edithcolea grandis. Edithcolea grandis is the most remarkably flowered asclepiad you can possibly imagine. Comes from Africa, and you can see there's a whole bunch of flowers ready to pop. But this one This one is in flower right now. And they're sometimes called the Persian carpet flower. And it doesn't take a wild imagination to figure out where that name comes from. I'm going to give it a sniff. Oh, that smelt like something musty. Not nearly as bad as I was expecting, but pretty cool. And here's another one. And they're amongst just conophytums and Euphorbias and everything you can possibly imagine. Little Euphorbia gymnocalycioides. Get a load of this, just, you know, trays upon trays upon trays of beautiful Copiapoas. All of this stuff is just the sale stock, and, you know, it almost looks unremarkable compared to what we've already witnessed. But some of these things could sell for an inordinate price. I mean, have a look at this. What an amazing little plant. I love this. This is just orderly chaos. Haworthiopsis at the back with those thick white zebra stripes. We've got some Anacampseros, I think. This thing here. Huernias all mixed in, and then you've got cacti, flowering mammillarias, gymnocalyciums. It's an absolute visual insanity, but I love it. I genuinely love it. Let's see what else there is. I wonder if I can go home with anything today. I'm sure, this being the production nursery, they'd sell me a thing or two. Little aloe hybrids in flower. Look at the beautiful colours. I've fallen in love with fellow cactus lately, and I've spotted this thing here. It looks kind of like it's going dichotomous, two heads emerging from one. That's remarkable. More lithops. These ones much smaller, clearly part of the production line, but no less stunning. These are called crassula capitella. And if you're into geometric plants, they're really something else. Very easy to grow as well. I know a lot of succulent growers cut their teeth on crassulas because they're pretty straightforward to care for. But then have a look at this, just lurking in amongst it. Little crested brain cactus. Don't know what species it is, but it's pretty remarkable. Another endless sea of Phelocactus. I'm just going to capture some of the genuine visual chaos. I really want to stress, this is a two-person job. Two-person. I have half the manpower and I can barely stay on top of a 9 square metre greenhouse. I don't know how they do it. There aren't enough hours in the day. What it speaks to is a pair of people who are beyond committed to the world of cacti. Have a look at that beautiful flower. Isn't that just stunning? Have a look at these, some sort of cordiciform member of the Isoaceae family. Not exactly sure what it is, but they're pretty remarkable. There's little variegated Haworthia just glowing. Absolutely stunning. I know there's some true Turbinicarpus aficionados out there. So let's just take a moment to appreciate the bizarreness and the wonder of these little Mexican miniatures. Look at this little guy. Flowering. In fact, how did I not notice? Flowers everywhere amongst them. Conophytums come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And these are some of the most impressive in terms of their appearance. These look like Conophytum malgarnii, and with enough light, they get this really deep wine colour. Now, these are winter growing plants, and so they're all sort of heading into dormancy now, which means their old leaves will slowly dry over to protect the new leaves emerging inside. And as a result, they've got almost a squishy, gelatinous kind of texture about them. It's really a little off-putting, but also very, very cool indeed. Lordy lordy, Pseudolithos cubiformis, just a mere 25 bucks. These plants, I don't know, on the Australian market are typically significantly more than this. Speaks to the fantastic value that this place offers. Like I said, if you're in Australia, well worth looking them up on Facebook. I've barely had the time to scratch the surface here in Cactus Anonymous. This place is massive, it is overwhelming, and it is really just heaven for any cactus or succulent lover. I could have spent a whole day here, but alas, time was not so forgiving, and so it's with a heavy heart that I'm going to have to go home. I've got a plane to catch back to Sydney. I really hope you've enjoyed not only this episode of Arid Zine, but the whole adventure that I've taken through Brisbane, sharing with you some amazing collections and this otherworldly production nursery. So I suppose a little epilogue to that massive Brisbane journey. Did I go home with any souvenirs? Well, yes, I certainly did. I picked up a few amazing plants from Cactus Anonymous. Let me share them with you. First of all, I've got this really cool Stapeliad. This is a species called Echinopsis seriiformis, and it grows these wonderfully delicate, tiny, very, very tiny little flowers in time. Bizarre little plants, and it'll grow from cutting. So you can see the number of arms on this thing. I'm sure in no time at all I'll have a little army of them. Fantastic. And in the same vein, I also picked up a few cuttings of a Huernia species. Now, we weren't quite sure what the name of this species was. I suspect that it may be Huernia erinaceae, but time will tell. When it flowers, I'll have more information. But I did get one more plant, and it's the one that I'm most excited to share with you. That's right, I'm going home with that weird munty, possibly dichotomous thelocactus. This plant caught my eye straight away, and I almost lost it. I almost couldn't find it going back through that massive production greenhouse. But I am so excited to have this plant now in my collection and seeing what strange and wonderful things it does as it grows on into the future, hopefully for many, many more years to come. So, Arid Zine in Brisbane, hey, I can tell you what, it was a very exhausting day, but really, really well worth it. And I hope you've enjoyed my travels as I've gone and looked at those amazing collections, and then the granddaddy of them all, that massive production nursery at Cactus Anonymous. A reminder, please do go check them out. Cactus Anonymous, you can find them on Facebook. There are a couple of different Cactus Anonymous groups, so be mindful. Look for the one with this Cactus Anonymous logo and you'll know you're in the right spot. Anyway, that's it. Hope you have a good one, and I'll see you next Monday.